one of the most notable conflicts during the Horus Heresy. The burning of Prospero was the event pitting the Space Wolves Legion, alongside their allies within the Sisters of Silence and the Legio Custodes, against the formidable psychic might of the Thousand Sons Legion and their Spire Guard Guardsmen regiments. The conflict began following the Primarch of the Thousand Sons, Magnus the Red, breaking the Edict of Nicaea, continuing to study the forbidden art of sorcery, and using these abilities to try and warn the Emperor of the treachery of the War Master Horus Lupercal. The Emperor, furious that Magnus had broken his edict, had the Primarch Leman Russ and the Space Wolves Legion march upon Prospero to bring Magnus back to Terra to stand trial. However, Horus, whose treachery Leman Russ remained ignorant of, convinced the Space Wolves Primarch that bringing Magnus back to Terra would be a waste of time and resources, and managed to persuade Russ to simply destroy the Thousand Sons Legion instead. For in the eyes of Horus and the other traitor Primarchs, Fulgrim, Angron, Lorgar and Mortarion, Magnus the Red was a dangerous wildcard that needed to be removed from the equation. The Thousand Sons Legion suffered devastating losses, losing over 90% of their Legion forces, as well as losing over 30 million civilians and Prosperine Spire Guard forces as the world was all but destroyed. Magnus the Red and the surviving members of the Legion managed to escape to the world of Sortiarius, known henceforth as the Planet of Sorcerers, thanks in part to the ritual started by the Thousand Sons Chief Librarian and First Captain, Azek Araman. After feeling betrayed by the Emperor by merely attempting to warn him of War Master Horus's treachery, Magnus and the Thousand Sons found sanctuary in the embrace of the Chaos God Tzeentch. However, was it ultimately Tzeentch and not Horus who had instigated the fall of Magnus the Red? Tzeentch is a constantly plotting and scheming god. These plots and schemes may appear to be contradictory to those who discern them, but this is because that only Tzeentch and Tzeentch alone is the one being who can understand and perceive the full possibilities of every individual action. Tzeentch and Magnus the Red have also had past dealings, from which Tzeentch could have also begun to take a greater interest in the Primarch of the Thousand Sons Legion. This bargain involved Magnus the Red sacrificing his right eye to Tzeentch in an effort to spare the Thousand Sons from the wave of crippling and abhorrent mutations that the Legion suffered from, known as the Flesh Change, and for a while at least, these mutations did indeed go into remission. But even before the burning of Prospero, Tzeentch began to influence events behind the scenes with the academic and oral historian of the Space Wolves Legion, Caspar Hauser. Hauser's mind and memories were manipulated and altered in a way to try and increase chances of conflict between the two legions. One of these mental manipulations resulted in Hauser continuing to have a recurring dream, recalling his time staying in a luxury suite on the Lemurian plate above Terra. During the course of the dream, Hauser would go through a routine of waking up and getting ready for the day, but when he would catch his reflection in the mirror, in addition to his own reflection, there was also the reflection of someone else behind him. At this point, he would continue to wake up, but was unable to recall who was standing behind him. This dream would become the focal point of the investigations by the rune priests of the Space Wolves Legion. Ultimately, it was discovered that this dream was actually a suppressed memory of his contact with a demon of Tzeentch, with Hauser having been developed as a future agent for up to 50 years or even his entire life. Hauser would come into contact with the demon again several more times, the first of which was during the Council of Nicaea, where the demon was disguised as the Thousand Sons captain Ammon to further convince the Space Wolves that Hauser was one of the Hidden Ones, the spies of the Thousand Sons Legion. Hauser later accompanied the Space Wolves to Prospero and would encounter the demon once more, this time masquerading as Horus Lupercal, as they reached a location that looked eerily similar to the one in his dream. The demon revealed to Hauser its plan of mutual annihilation of the two most dangerous and unpredictable legions within the Horus Heresy. As the demon no longer needed its puppet, he attempted to slay Hauser, but the demon would ultimately be banished thanks to the timely intervention of several other Space Wolves, including Bjorn the Fell-Handed and a contingent of Sisters of Silence. However, while mutual annihilation may be the official standpoint as it were, one cannot disregard Tzeentch having a contingency plan of some kind in place, to take the second most powerful psyker and potentially the greatest sorcerer of an entire species as his prize, especially when you take into consideration that the number of the surviving Thousand Sons who would accept Tzeentch as their patron god totaled in number at 1242 individuals. The cross sum of 1242 is 9, the sacred number of Tzeentch himself. Indeed, it seems as if the Thousand Sons themselves were destined from their creation to become the property of Tzeentch, as when the first batch of Thousand Sons gene seed was implanted into the original Terran aspirants, the Sol system became racked by warp storms, which in turn generated psychic flashpoints all across Terra, resulting in outbreaks of madness, suicide, and random violence. Even upon learning of this many years later, Magnus the Red considered this a dire omen. And given the rampant mutation of the flesh change the Legion has suffered from, and Tzeentch's penchant for gifting his followers with extreme mutation, seems to suggest that Tzeentch himself generated these warp storms around Terra to taint the Thousand Sons, so that they will eventually become his pawns in his eternal game, just as planned. Is this part of a larger plan by the Architect of Fate himself, or could this be a coincidence? Leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.